Let's begin with a simple but powerful question. Have you ever felt hurt because someone didn't do what you expected them to? Maybe it was a close friend who didn't check on you when you were struggling. Maybe you went out of your way to help someone, but when you needed help, they weren't there. Or maybe you've poured your heart into something, a relationship, a job, a friendship, only to feel disappointed when your efforts weren't appreciated or reciprocated. Almost everyone has experienced this kind of emotional letdown at some point. It stings. It feels unfair. It makes you question people, and sometimes even yourself. But what's really behind that pain? More often than not, it isn't what they didn't do that hurts. It's what you expected them to do. Why we expect in the first place. From an early age, we're conditioned to expect certain things from others. We expect kindness from people we've been kind to. We expect loyalty from those we've trusted. We expect love from those we love. It feels like a fair exchange, right? But life isn't always fair, and people aren't always able or willing to live up to the expectations we place on them, especially when those expectations are unspoken. Here's the key realization. Expectations are silent contracts that the other person never signed. And when they don't meet them, not because they're cruel, but because they never agreed to them in the first place, we end up hurt, confused, or angry. A common real-life example. Think about birthdays. You might remember someone's birthday every year, plan something for them, make them feel special, and when your birthday comes around, you wait and hear nothing. You feel invisible, even betrayed. But pause and ask yourself, did they promise to do for you what you did for them? Or did you simply expect them to? This doesn't mean your feelings aren't valid. Of course, it's disappointing. But understanding that your pain is rooted in expectation, not necessarily injustice, helps you gain emotional control. Introducing the main idea. This leads us to the central concept of this message. Never expect anything from anyone. At first, this may sound harsh, maybe even cynical. But it's not about becoming cold or selfish. It's about emotional freedom. It's about learning to find peace, power, and happiness within yourself, rather than relying on others to give it to you. Expectations, when unchecked, become emotional traps. They give other people power over your mood, your self-esteem, your peace of mind. Imagine how different life would feel if your joy didn't depend on what others did or didn't do. Imagine waking up not expecting messages, favors, appreciation, or understanding, and instead simply living and giving from a place of self-awareness and choice. Clarify what this message is not about. It's important to clarify what never expect anything from anyone doesn't mean. It doesn't mean isolating yourself or refusing to trust. It doesn't mean avoiding help or refusing kindness. It doesn't mean becoming numb or emotionally unavailable. It means giving without attachment to outcomes. It means loving people as they are, not as we want them to be. It means offering help when you choose to do so, not because you expect something in return. This mindset doesn't make your relationships weaker. It makes them more honest and resilient. The emotional cost of unmet expectations. Think back to all the times you felt let down. More than likely, those moments had one thing in common. You expected someone to act, feel, respond, or prioritize the way you would. When they didn't, you felt disrespected or unloved. But in reality, they were just being who they are, not who you hoped they'd be. The more you expect from others, the more power you give them over your inner world. When you stop expecting and start accepting, you take that power back. Set the tone for the rest of the message. This introduction isn't about condemning people for letting us down. It's about shifting the focus away from what others should do and toward what we can control, ourselves. As we move through this message, we'll explore why we expect, how expectations damage our peace and relationships, and most importantly, how to live more freely by letting go of those silent demands we place on others. This journey isn't about becoming emotionally distant. It's about becoming emotionally independent. So, if you've ever felt exhausted trying to manage your relationships, if you've ever felt hurt when people didn't act the way you hoped they would, then this message is for you. You're not alone, but you are in control. And it starts with this truth. Never expect anything from anyone. Not because people are bad, but because peace begins where expectation ends. The nature of expectations. What are expectations really? At their core, expectations are beliefs about how others should behave, respond, or treat us, often based on our own values, past experiences, and needs. They're usually unspoken, yet we hold them tightly, almost as rules the world should follow. Think of expectations as invisible scripts we create in our minds. We assign roles to people in our lives, friends, family, coworkers, partners, and we imagine how they're supposed to act within those roles. When they follow the script, everything feels fine. But when they go off script, or never read it in the first place, we feel disappointed, confused, or even angry. Where expectations come from? Expectations don't just appear out of nowhere. They're shaped by upbringing. If you were raised in a home where certain behaviors were the norm, like saying thank you, showing up for birthdays, or checking in when someone's upset, you naturally assume that's how everyone behaves. When others don't meet those standards, it feels wrong, even if it's simply different. Culture and society. Society often teaches us what to expect from relationships. Romantic movies, for example, can make us believe love should look like grand gestures and perfect understanding. Reality check: family dynamics are complex. No one has the same emotional needs or bandwidth. In romantic relationships, expecting your partner to just know what you need, expecting constant reassurance, love, attention, or validation. These expectations can become emotional traps. When a partner fails to meet them, it can lead to unnecessary conflict, even if the relationship is healthy. In the workplace, expecting recognition for your hard work, expecting coworkers to share your level of dedication, expecting fairness from management. In a professional setting, unmet expectations often lead to burnout, frustration, or quiet quitting, not because the work is hard, but because the emotional reward you hoped for isn't there. Why expectations are so dangerous? Expectations, when left unchecked, create attachment to specific outcomes. This attachment is a setup for suffering. Here's why. They are often unspoken. People can't meet your expectations if they don't even know they exist. We assume others will behave as we would, but they don't live in your head. They don't share your past, your values, or your perspective. They turn into entitlement. When you expect something long enough, it becomes a sense of entitlement. I deserve this. That shift from hope to entitlement is subtle, but it changes your energy. Instead of appreciating what people do give, you resent what they don't. They lead to resentment. When people consistently fail to meet your expectations, you begin to build emotional distance. It might sound like, they never show up for me, or I guess I just care more than they do, or I would never treat someone like that. Resentment is often less about what was done and more about what was expected and not delivered. The illusion of control. One of the most seductive things about expectations is that they give you the illusion of control. You think, if I treat people well, they'll treat me well. If I work hard, I'll be recognized. If I explain myself clearly, they'll understand. But life and people are unpredictable. No matter how thoughtful, loyal, or clear you are, you cannot control how others respond. Trying to control others through expectations is a silent form of manipulation, even if it's unintentional. What's the alternative? If expectations cause so much pain, what's the alternative? Start by shifting from expectation to expression and acceptance. Expression. Instead of expecting someone to show up, express your need. It would mean a lot if you could be there. This creates clarity, not assumption. Acceptance. Accept people as they are, not as you wish they were. Accept that they have limits, distractions, emotional blind spots, just like you. And perhaps most importantly, expect from yourself what you wish others would give you. Want support? Be your strongest supporter. Want love? Practice self-love. Want loyalty? Be loyal to your own boundaries and values. Thought for this section. Expectations aren't inherently bad. They're part of being human. But when they're unconscious, rigid, or based on fantasy rather than reality, they become toxic. So the next time you catch yourself thinking, "They should have," pause. Ask yourself, did they know that's what I wanted? Is this expectation fair or realistic? Can I express this instead of assuming it? Can I let go and accept what is, rather than clinging to what should be? Understanding the nature of expectations is the first step towards emotional freedom. In the next part, we'll explore why expectations hurt so much and how to stop letting them control your happiness. Why expectations hurt. The emotional sting of expectations. Everyone knows the feeling. You do everything right. You show up for people, you love them the best way you know how, and you give time, energy, support, attention. And when it's your turn, no one shows up. No one reaches out. No one responds the way you hoped. You feel invisible, disappointed, hurt. But here's a hard truth. It's not always the other person who caused your pain. Often, it's the weight of your own expectations. It's not that people let you down, it's that you expected them not to. Pain equals reality minus expectations. One way to understand emotional suffering is with a simple formula. Pain equals reality minus expectations. In other words, the pain you feel is the gap between what you thought would happen and what actually did happen. Let's say you spent days planning something special for a friend's birthday. When your birthday comes, they barely remember. The reality is they forgot, or they didn't prioritize you the way you prioritized them. But the expectation was that they would match your effort. That gap between the two, that's where the pain lives. If you hadn't expected anything, would you still be hurt? Probably not as much. The event wouldn't have changed, but your reaction to it would have. This is why letting go of expectations leads to less emotional suffering. Unmet expectations create emotional chaos. When expectations are unmet, they don't just cause sadness, they can stir up a range of powerful and sometimes toxic emotions. Resentment. You start to keep score. I did this for them, but they didn't do anything for me. I'm always there for them. Why can't they be there for me? Resentment builds when you feel like you've invested more than someone else without getting anything in return. The more you expect, the more this imbalance eats at you. Insecurity. Unmet expectations can feel like rejection. You might start thinking, am I not important to them? Did I do something wrong?
Am I asking for too much? Suddenly, a simple unmet need becomes a deep question about your worth or place in someone's life. Anger. You may feel angry not just at the person, but at the world for being unfair. Anger often disguises hurt. You expected kindness, appreciation, or attention, and when it didn't come, your emotional system reacts like it's under threat. Expectations are emotional traps for two big reasons. One, they are often silent. We rarely say out loud what we expect. We just assume the other person knows or should know. You expect your partner to check in when you're upset. You expect your friend to remember important dates. You expect your coworker to acknowledge your contribution. But did you ever say those things clearly? Probably not. That's the trap. People don't know what they don't know, but you still hold them responsible for the outcome. And they are based on how you think, not on how they are. You expect people to act the way you would, not the way they naturally are. This is especially dangerous in close relationships. You expect your partner to comfort you the way you comfort them. You expect a friend to text daily because that's what you do. But everyone has different habits, needs, and emotional languages. By expecting others to mirror you, you ignore their individuality and set yourself up to be disappointed when they don't act as your reflection. How expectations damage relationships. Over time, expectations can quietly erode even the closest bonds. People feel pressured. When someone senses that they're constantly falling short of your expectations, they might feel like they're always failing, even if they care deeply about you. You become harder to please. When you focus on what people don't do for you, it's easy to overlook what they do for you. This turns appreciation into entitlement. Communication breaks down. Instead of saying, "I felt hurt when this happened," you say, "You should have known." That assumption builds frustration on both sides. Emotional distance grows. People may pull away if they feel judged, misunderstood, or not good enough to meet your standards. Letting go of expectations isn't about lowering your standards or tolerating poor treatment. It's about being clear about your needs, accepting people for who they are, and not attaching your emotional well-being to someone else's behavior. The role of assumptions. Expectations are closely tied to assumptions, and assumptions are dangerous. We assume people will treat us the way we treat them. If someone loves us, they'll always know what we need. If we're kind, others will be kind back. And assumptions don't guarantee reality. Instead of assuming, try asking, try expressing, try clarifying. Assumption leads to disappointment. Communication leads to connection. Healing the hurt of unmet expectations. Once you understand that expectations are often at the root of emotional pain, you can begin to heal by becoming aware of your expectations. Ask yourself, am I expecting something they never agreed to? Letting go of silent demands. Replace assumptions with expression. "I'd love if you could be there" is better than silently expecting presence and being hurt by absence. Recentering your emotions. Remind yourself, I cannot control others, but I can control how I respond. Focusing on self-fulfillment. Give yourself what you wish others would give you. The more complete you are internally, the less you rely on others to fill emotional gaps. Thought for this section. Expectations hurt because they tie our peace to someone else's actions. They hurt because they make us prisoners of hope. Hope that others will behave according to a script they've never read.
Freedom begins when we untie our worth from the responses of others. When you stop expecting, you stop suffering. You don't stop loving, you just start loving without conditions. Let go not because people always fail you, but because you deserve a peace that isn't dependent on their performance. The mindset shift. The turning point. By now, we've seen how expectations are often silent, unrealistic, and a major cause of emotional pain. So the next logical question is, if expectations hurt so much, what should we do instead? This is where the real transformation begins. It's not just about removing expectations, it's about replacing them with something healthier and empowering. The shift is not from caring to not caring. It's from expecting to expressing, from demanding to understanding, and from emotional dependence to emotional strength. This mindset shift isn't about becoming cold or emotionally unavailable. It's about protecting your peace while still being open to connection. Replace expectations with boundaries and standards. Expectations are based on what others should do. Boundaries and standards are based on what you allow and accept. Let's break this down. Expectation. They should always support me when I'm down. Boundary. If someone consistently dismisses my feelings, I won't continue investing emotionally in that relationship. See the difference? One tries to control others, the other protects you. You can't control how people act, but you can control what you tolerate, where you draw the line, and how you respond. That's your power. Likewise, standards are the values you live by. They guide what kind of people and energy you allow into your life. For example, I value honesty, so I surround myself with honest people. I don't chase love, I match energy. You're not expecting anything from others, you're deciding what you will and won't align with. That's strength. Express instead of expect. One of the biggest mistakes we make is assuming people can read our minds. You may think, if they cared, they'd know I need help. I shouldn't have to tell them, they should just understand. But no one, not your partner, your best friend, or your boss, is a mind reader. The emotional clarity you seek comes from clear expression, not silent expectation. Instead of saying nothing and stewing in disappointment, try this. I feel overwhelmed. Would you be open to helping me with this? It would mean a lot if you could check in with me more during tough weeks. Expression gives people a fair chance to show up. Expectation punishes them for not guessing correctly. One empowers, the other damages connection. Shift from deserve to choose. A huge part of expectation is entitlement. You think, I deserve love, I deserve respect, I deserve a response. While it's true that you're worthy of love and respect, no one owes it to you. That's a hard but freeing truth. Instead of living in a space of deserving, step into a space of choosing. You don't wait for people to give you love, you choose to give it to yourself. You don't wait for people to validate your worth, you choose to stand in it. From this place of strength, you're no longer begging people to meet expectations. You're observing who aligns with your values and acting accordingly. Detach from outcomes. Expectations are attachments to specific outcomes. They'll appreciate what I did. They'll return the favor. They'll react the way I want. And when those outcomes don't happen, you suffer. The alternative? Detach from the outcome. Stay rooted in the intention. If you give someone a gift, give it freely, not to receive gratitude, but because you wanted to give. If you help someone, do it from love, not to collect emotional debt. This doesn't mean you accept being taken for granted. It means your peace doesn't rely on whether or not someone responds the way you hoped. You become less reactive and more grounded. Practice radical acceptance. Radical acceptance means you stop fighting reality. You stop wishing people were different. Stop rewriting their behavior in your head and start seeing things as they are. If someone shows you they can't be emotionally available, accept it. If someone repeatedly breaks your trust, accept it. If someone doesn't love you the way you want, accept it. This doesn't mean you're okay with being mistreated. It means you stop trying to force people to fit your expectations. Acceptance brings clarity. Clarity leads to better decisions. Focus on what you can control. At the heart of this mindset shift is a truth we often forget. You can't control others. You can only control yourself. You can't control how someone treats you, but you can control how long you stay. You can't control if someone loves you back, but you can control how you love yourself. You can't control if someone supports you, but you can control how you show up for your own growth and healing. This mindset shift turns pain into power. It shifts you from victim mode to freedom mode. I decide what I allow. How this shift transforms your life. When you stop expecting and start choosing, you become less reactive and more peaceful. You experience gratitude for what people freely give.
You stop chasing validation and start living from inner security. You let go of disappointment and start building stronger boundaries. And most of all, you begin to build relationships not on emotional contracts, but on mutual respect, communication, and freedom. Thought for this section. The mindset shift is not about giving up on people. It's about giving up on illusion. You stop expecting others to complete you, fix you, or behave according to your inner blueprint. You stop outsourcing your peace to people who are never responsible for it. And you start living with clarity, freedom, and groundedness. Let go of the silent demands. Speak your truth. Honor your boundaries, and remember, you owe yourself the love, clarity, and peace you once begged others for. The power of no expectations. Freedom begins where expectation ends. Imagine waking up one day with no emotional strings tied to anyone's actions. You don't expect text back. You don't expect appreciation. You don't expect love to be returned in the same way you give it. You don't expect people to act, think, or respond like you. Now imagine this. Despite all that, you still give love, you still show up, you still care, not because you're hoping for something back, but because it's who you choose to be. That is the power of living without expectations. It may sound unrealistic at first. After all, humans are wired for connection, reciprocity, and recognition. But learning to live without expectations doesn't mean becoming detached or cold. It means becoming free. The difference between giving and giving with strings. When you expect something in return for your kindness, your love becomes a transaction. It sounds like, I would do this for you, so why didn't you do it for me? After everything I've done, this is how you treat me? That's not love, that's control dressed as care. When you remove expectations, your love becomes genuine. You're not trying to manage outcomes, you're simply expressing your truth and allowing others the freedom to respond however they choose. That's where real peace begins. You give because it's in your nature, not because you're trying to provoke, earn, or manipulate a response. No expectations equals no disappointment. Here's a basic truth. You can't be disappointed by people you didn't expect anything from.
It's like going for a walk in the rain without an umbrella. If you already accepted you might get wet, you won't be angry when the storm hits. But if you'd expected sunshine and didn't prepare, you'll be drenched and mad at the world. The same is true with people. If you expect someone to always reply on time, always remember your feelings, always mirror your energy, you'll constantly be setting yourself up for frustration. But if you live without assuming, if you simply let people be who they are, you allow reality to unfold without resisting it. And without that resistance, disappointment fades. You begin to see things clearly, not through the filter of what you wish would happen. No expectations leads to gratitude. When you expect nothing, everything becomes a gift. A simple thank you feels meaningful. A random call feels special. A kind gesture feels profound. You no longer feel entitled to anything, so whatever people do offer feels like abundance, not obligation. This shift changes your entire emotional landscape. You stop focusing on what's missing and you start appreciating what's present. That's gratitude in its purest form. Gratitude without entitlement. Relationships become more authentic. When you stop expecting, you stop manipulating. You stop trying to shape people into who you think they should be. You give them room to breathe, to be, to evolve. And in that space, real connection grows. Think about it. Would you rather someone help you because they genuinely want to, or because they feel like they have to? Would you rather be loved freely or out of guilt, pressure, or obligation? When people know you don't expect anything from them, they feel safe, they feel free. And paradoxically, that freedom often invites them to give you even more, because it's coming from a place of choice, not duty. That's where the strongest, most secure relationships are built, not on pressure, but on permission. You become emotionally independent. Living without expectations forces you to look inward.
You stop waiting for others to make you feel good, and you start discovering your own sources of joy. You stop needing constant reassurance and start building your own confidence. You stop chasing love and begin cultivating it inside yourself. You realize that the deepest form of freedom is emotional independence. It's not about isolation or avoidance. It's about knowing you are whole, with or without someone's approval, attention, or affection. This mindset frees you from anxiety, clinginess, and the toxic cycles of overgiving and under-receiving. You're no longer controlled by reactions. Expectations make you emotionally reactive. If someone doesn't do what you hoped, you spiral, you overthink, you question your worth. You might lash out, withdraw, or start keeping score. But once you stop expecting, your mood is no longer dictated by others. You respond calmly. You observe without reacting. You start to respond to reality instead of reacting to disappointment. This gives you emotional power. You're no longer a puppet pulled by the strings of other people's behavior. No expectations doesn't mean no hope. Let's be clear, living without expectations doesn't mean becoming hopeless, numb, or indifferent. It's not about assuming the worst in people or shutting everyone out. It's about replacing hope that demands something with hope that simply allows. You still believe in love, kindness, connection. You just don't force them. You don't place deadlines or demands on them. You let people show up if and when they choose to, and if they don't, you don't crumble. You've already learned to stand on your own. Giving without expecting. Let's say you lend money to a friend, knowing their situation is difficult. If you expect them to repay you quickly, you may grow bitter when they don't. If you expect them to constantly thank you, you'll feel ignored if they don't express it. But if you give from a place of freedom, knowing full well they may not repay you, then any gesture of gratitude or repayment becomes a bonus, not a requirement. This doesn't mean you give recklessly. It means you give with awareness and release attachment to the outcome. That's maturity. That's peace. Thought for this section. The power of no expectations is not about shutting down, it's about rising up. Rising above neediness. Rising above dependency. Rising above the constant cycle of disappointment. When you let go of what you think people should do, you make room for what they will do. And that's where authenticity begins. You start living from a place of calm instead of control, from freedom instead of fear, from appreciation instead of entitlement. So give freely, love without clinging, show up without scorekeeping, because the moment you stop expecting from others is the moment you begin to truly reclaim your peace, your power, and your joy. Realistic connections. Building relationships that actually work. By now, we've established how expectations, especially unspoken or unrealistic ones, often lead to disappointment, resentment, and emotional pain. But what does that mean for our relationships? Should we stop trusting people? Stop hoping? Should we go through life completely detached? No. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean giving up on connection. It means creating realistic connections, grounded in understanding, respect, and emotional maturity, not fantasy or silent demands. Fantasy versus reality in relationships. Many people walk into friendships or romantic relationships with an invisible checklist. You may not say it out loud, but deep down you might think, if they love me, they'll always put me first. They should know what I need without me saying it. They'll never hurt me, disappoint me, or misunderstand me. These ideas aren't always conscious, but they're rooted in fantasy. We often expect people to behave like characters in a story, perfectly attuned to our needs, always showing up the right way, never letting us down. But people are flawed. They're inconsistent. They're busy, confused, distracted, and sometimes selfish, just like you, just like all of us. And that's okay. The goal isn't perfect relationships. The goal is honest ones. What realistic connections look like? Number 1, clear communication instead of assumptions. In realistic relationships, there's less "they should know" and more "let me tell you how I feel." You stop assuming that love means mind reading. You stop resenting people for not guessing right. You start having honest, respectful conversations. "Hey, I feel disconnected. Can we talk? I was hoping for more support this week. Would you be open to that?" When you said that earlier, I felt hurt. Can we unpack it? This doesn't mean you'll always get the response you want, but you'll build trust through clarity instead of confusion. Number 2, acceptance of imperfection. Realistic connections leave space for people to mess up, to have off days, to forget, to fall short. And that space isn't just grace for others, it's grace for yourself too. You stop expecting to be the perfect friend, partner, or sibling. You allow yourself to be human. That kind of mutual imperfection creates real connection, the kind that lasts. Number 3, healthy boundaries over silent suffering. In fantasy-based relationships, you might tolerate disrespect or neglect because you expect the other person to come around. In realistic connections, you set boundaries, not to punish people, but to protect your peace. Examples: I need friends who communicate consistently. If that's not something you value, I respect that, but I can't stay close. Or, if you continue raising your voice during arguments, I'm going to have to step away from the conversation. Boundaries are not ultimatums. They're declarations of self-respect. They show people how to treat you, not by demanding, but by choosing how you engage. How letting go of expectations improves relationships. Ironically, when you stop expecting too much, your relationships actually get better. Here's why. Number 1, you stop keeping score. When you're not constantly comparing what you give versus what you get, you stop resenting people. You give because it feels right, not because you're waiting for something in return. This creates an atmosphere of generosity and mutual appreciation, not emotional debt. Number 2, you focus on compatibility, not control. When you stop trying to change people to fit your expectations, you can actually see them clearly.
Do their values align with yours? Do they show up when it really matters? Are they willing to grow with you? Instead of trying to mold people into what you need, you simply choose better matches for your energy and standards. 3, you build from a place of freedom. When people don't feel pressured to meet your every emotional need, they're more likely to respond naturally, with authenticity, not obligation. Freedom in relationships breeds honesty. People are more willing to share truth, express love, or admit flaws when they know they won't be punished for not being enough. The role of emotional self-sufficiency. One of the cornerstones of realistic connection is this: you are responsible for your own happiness. That doesn't mean you don't need people. We all need love, support, and connection. But it does mean you don't need constant validation to feel worthy. You don't need someone to rescue you from loneliness or fear. You don't outsource your peace to another person's behavior. Instead, you build a life you love, and you let others add to it, not define it. When two emotionally self-sufficient people come together, in friendship, romance, or family, the result is powerful. There's no clinging, no guilt, no power games.
Just two whole individuals choosing to walk alongside each other. What to do when people don't meet you halfway? Even with all this emotional maturity, some people just won't meet you where you are. They might refuse to communicate clearly, take more than they give, disrespect your boundaries, show no interest in growth. What do you do then? You don't demand, you don't beg, you don't guilt them. You observe and you adjust. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is walk away. Not in anger, but in clarity. You understand that not everyone is meant to stay, and that's okay. Not every connection is meant to be permanent, but every connection can teach you something about others and about yourself. Love without expectations, stay without attachment. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean settling for less. It means making decisions with open eyes and open hearts, not closed fists and crossed fingers. It means loving people as they are, not as you want them to be. Accepting reality instead of clinging to fantasy. Choosing presence over pressure. You can love deeply without holding people emotionally hostage. You can give without needing anything back. You can stay in someone's life while giving them the space to be exactly who they are. That's not weakness, that's strength. Thought for this section. Real connection isn't about getting everything you expect. It's about embracing what's real, appreciating what's offered freely, and walking away when something consistently hurts your peace. Let go of the script. Let go of the fantasy. Let go of the "they should have." Instead, look around and ask, is this connection honest? Does this relationship align with my values? Can I love this person as they are, without needing them to be different? That's realistic connection. That's peace. Bringing it all together. We've walked through a deep and honest exploration of human connection, emotional pain, and the silent contracts we call expectations. We've seen how expecting something from someone, whether it's love, validation, attention, support, or understanding, can lead to disappointment, hurt, and resentment. But more importantly, we've seen that letting go of expectations, we don't lose anything, we gain everything. Emotional independence, clearer relationships, inner peace, more gratitude, and the ability to love without fear. This is the mindset shift that changes your life. Why letting go isn't losing, it's choosing. It might sound at first like letting go of expectations is the same as giving up on people. That couldn't be further from the truth. Letting go doesn't mean becoming cynical, guarded, or emotionally numb. It means choosing peace over pressure, clarity over confusion, and love over control. You're not giving up on people. You're giving up on trying to control them. You're letting go of the fantasy that people will always behave the way you want, think the way you think, or love the way you love. And in that release, you finally make room for what's real. Peace begins where expectation ends. Let this sink in. Peace begins not when others meet your expectations, but when you stop needing them to. The moment you stop tying your happiness to someone else's actions, you set yourself free. No more disappointed because someone didn't call. No more feeling crushed when your kindness isn't returned. No more anger when others don't think or act the way you would. You're no longer on an emotional roller coaster powered by other people. You're grounded within yourself. That's true emotional freedom. Gratitude grows where expectations shrink. When you live without expectations, something magical happens. Everything becomes a gift. A friend checking in on you? A beautiful surprise. Your partner remembering something small? A warm blessing. A coworker showing appreciation? A sweet bonus. You stop assuming that people owe you something, and instead you begin appreciating the voluntary love and effort they show. It turns everyday interactions into moments of connection, not emotional transactions. That shift from entitlement to gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional upgrades you can make. Self-responsibility, the ultimate freedom. Here's the truth that many people avoid. You are responsible for your own peace, healing, and happiness. Not your parents, not your partner, not your friends, not your boss. You. That doesn't mean you have to do everything alone, but it means that the moment you stop waiting for others to make you feel whole, you begin to take real control of your life. You start building your own joy instead of begging for crumbs of validation. You start healing your own wounds instead of expecting someone else to fix them. You start living for yourself, not for how people treat you. That's not selfish, that's self-aware. Love, but don't cling. Yes, love deeply. Yes, care fiercely. Yes, show up for people with your full heart. But don't make your peace conditional on how they respond. You can love someone who doesn't love you back. You can support someone who isn't ready to receive it. You can forgive someone who doesn't say sorry. Because your love is a reflection of you, not of their behavior. When you love without needing to control or change someone, your love becomes powerful, not desperate. Let people be who they are, and let yourself walk away when who they are consistently hurts your peace. Set standards, not expectations. Let's be clear again. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean tolerating disrespect, inconsistency, or emotional laziness. You are allowed and encouraged to have standards. What's the difference? Expectations, they should do this for me. Standards, if they don't do this, I choose to distance myself.
Motivational. Expectations demand. Standards decide. You're not controlling others. You're just choosing how much access they have to you based on how they show up. That's healthy. That's mature. That's self-respect. Let reality be enough. A lot of emotional pain comes from trying to force reality to match your fantasy. You imagine how someone should love you. You replay how a conversation should have gone. You create a version of someone in your head and then feel betrayed when they don't act like that version in real life. But reality is what it is, and the sooner you learn to accept it without judgment or attachment, the sooner you find peace. Let people show you who they are, not who you want them to be. Then make your choices accordingly, not from anger, but from awareness. 1 week without expectations, a challenge. Let's make this practical. Try this. Go 1 full week without expecting anything from anyone. Don't expect your text to be answered quickly. Don't expect people to understand you without explanation. Don't expect validation, praise, or attention. Just live. Just give. Just be. Observe what happens to your mind, your mood, and your relationships. What you'll likely find is that you're less reactive. You appreciate more. You feel lighter. and you finally understand what true inner peace feels like. Let go, not because people always fail you, but because you deserve peace. Let go of expectations, not because people are bad, unreliable, or incapable. Let go because your worth was never supposed to be measured by how others treat you. Let go because peace isn't found in control, it's found in acceptance. So love people, show up, be kind, but don't expect. Accept, don't cling. Choose, don't demand. Express. And most of all, give yourself the love, clarity, and freedom you once looked for in others. That's when life begins to change. Call to action. You've just taken in a powerful truth, one that most people never realize, or worse, realize too late. Expectations tie your peace to someone else's behavior. And now you know better. You know that inner peace, emotional maturity, and genuine connection all begin when you let go of expectations. But knowing isn't enough. If you don't apply it, it's just knowledge sitting in your mind. It becomes dead weight. So this is your moment. This is where you take what you've heard and make it real. It's time for action. Choose awareness over autopilot. Before anything else, you must begin by noticing your expectations as they happen. Most people operate on emotional autopilot. They assume, they get hurt, they lash out, and they don't even know why. But from this point on, I want you to pause anytime you feel frustrated, disappointed, resentful, emotionally hurt by someone's lack of action, and ask yourself, what was I expecting? Was I expecting a reply, a thank you, to read my mind, to prioritize me, to care the same way I do? The moment you catch yourself expecting, you can shift it. That's how emotional transformation begins, with awareness. Replace assumptions with communication. Once you recognize your expectations, you'll notice how many of them were silent. You assumed someone would understand you. You assumed they'd be there when you needed them. You assumed they'd react how you would. But did you ever tell them what you wanted? In relationships, personal, romantic, professional, clear communication changes everything. If something matters to you, say it. Don't hope people get it. Say it with kindness and honesty. I really appreciate when people show up consistently. It makes me feel secure. When I share something vulnerable, I'm hoping for understanding, not advice. I know you're busy, but I'd love a quick response just to know we're good. This isn't about demanding. It's about clarity. And clarity builds healthy relationships. Let people be who they are, not who you want them to be. Now comes the hard part, radical acceptance. Some people won't meet your needs, even after you communicate. Some will continue disappointing you, not because they're malicious, but because they're different. Maybe they're not emotionally available. Maybe they love you but can't show it in the way you want. Maybe they're on a different path. And you know what? That's okay. You're not here to control or fix anyone. You're here to see people clearly and then choose whether their current behavior aligns with your values. That's how you stop suffering in cycles of expectation. You stop trying to change people. You start choosing whether to stay, how close to be, or how to protect your peace. Set standards, not silent ultimatums. Some people mishear this message and think it means allowing anything from anyone. Let's be clear again. Letting go of expectations doesn't mean letting go of standards. You are allowed to have non-negotiables. You are allowed to say, I won't stay in a relationship where I'm constantly ignored.
I deserve consistency, and if someone can't offer that, I'll distance myself. I respect you, but I choose to surround myself with people who show up. That's not expectation. That's self-respect. Expectation says they should change. Standard says, if they don't, I will. You're not waiting for people to behave better. You're behaving better towards yourself and choosing accordingly. Detach, don't disconnect. This part is key. Letting go of expectations is not about becoming cold, distant, or emotionally unavailable. It's about detachment, not disconnection. Detachment means you still love, care, give, and engage, but you're not clinging to the outcome. You're not basing your joy on how someone responds. You do good because that's who you are, not because you're counting on something in return. And when someone surprises you with love or effort, you receive it with gratitude, not entitlement. That's the beauty of emotional freedom. The 7-day challenge. Here's your personal challenge, one that can change your life if you actually commit to it. Go 7 days with 0 expectations from anyone. That's right, 7 days. What does that mean? No expectations for people to text you back quickly. No assumptions that someone should understand how you feel. No silent resentment when someone doesn't behave the way you would. Instead, practice clear communication. Choose gratitude when people show up. Set healthy boundaries when people don't. Return to yourself every single time. And at the end of those 7 days,
reflect. Were you more or less stressed? Did you notice how many of your emotions were tied to invisible expectations? Did your relationships feel lighter? Did you feel more powerful and peaceful? This isn't just a challenge. It's a reset button for your emotional world. Give what you wish to receive without expecting it. If you want love, be loving without keeping score. If you want peace, create it inside yourself, not in others. If you want support, offer it, and let go of the idea that it must be returned in kind. This way of living may feel radical at first. It may feel lonely at times. But over time, it brings you into alignment with people who love freely, who give without guilt, and who exist in your life not out of obligation, but out of shared energy and respect. That's the life you deserve. That's the love you deserve. So, what happens next? You've heard the truth. You've seen how expectations are traps and how letting go sets you free. Now the choice is yours. Will you continue silently waiting for others to make you feel seen? Or will you step into a new way of living, one where your peace is no longer held hostage by someone else's behavior? The answer isn't out there. It's in you. Let go. Live free. Expect nothing and receive everything that's real. Final reflection. After everything we've discussed, after unpacking the pain of expectations, the freedom that comes from letting go, and the call to action that challenges you to live differently, now we arrive at the final reflection. This is where we pause, where we go inward, and we ask, what kind of life do I really want to live? Because in the end, this isn't just about expectations. It's about the life you're building and the inner peace you deserve. The truth about emotional freedom. Letting go of expectations isn't about lowering your standards or becoming indifferent. It's about reclaiming control of your emotional world. You stop depending on other people for validation, joy, security, a sense of worth, and you start becoming the source of all those things within yourself. That's emotional freedom. Not cold,
not detached, but deeply rooted in self-awareness and self-responsibility. Imagine waking up every day and feeling calm because you're not waiting on anyone, grateful because you've learned to appreciate everything, light because you're no longer weighed down by silent expectations. This is not a dream, it's a choice, and it begins the moment you stop outsourcing your happiness. Expectation is just a disguised form of control. Here's something hard to accept, but powerful once you do. Every time you expect someone to behave a certain way, you're trying to control them. That expectation may come from a place of love, fear, insecurity, or habit, but at its core, it's control. And control is exhausting. You try to mold people into versions of themselves that suit you. You create invisible rules and feel betrayed when people break them without even knowing those rules existed. You carry the emotional burden of other people's choices as if they were your responsibility. But here's the truth. People are not meant to be controlled. They are meant to be experienced, accepted, and, when necessary, released. The moment you stop trying to control others is the moment you begin to breathe freely. Letting go is not weakness, it's mastery. To let go of expectations is to rise above the noise of emotional chaos. Anyone can react, anyone can hold grudges, anyone can silently stew in disappointment. But to let go, to choose peace, to choose understanding, to choose your own alignment is an act of mastery. It takes strength to love without needing anything in return, give without expecting applause, support someone without tying your worth to their reaction. Weakness clings, strength releases. And in releasing, you discover just how powerful, whole, and centered you really are. Life without expectations is life lived in the present. Expectations always live in the future. They sound like, "They should call me tomorrow. She should have done this by now. They'll probably disappoint me again." Notice how all of these pull you away from the present moment. You're not living your life, you're scripting how others should behave. When you release expectations, you return to what is. Not what could have been, not what should be, just what is. This return to presence allows for real connection, real gratitude, and real peace, because your attention is no longer in the realm of what if. It's in the now, and the now is the only place life is actually happening. Real love doesn't expect, it accepts. Let's talk about love. Many of us have been conditioned to believe that love means expecting loyalty. But love that depends on expectation isn't love. It's a contract, a negotiation, a transaction. True love, the kind that sets both people free, doesn't say, "I'll love you if." It says, "I love you, and I accept you as you are, even if that means I have to love you from a distance." Real love doesn't grip, it holds space. Real love doesn't demand change, it invites honesty. When you let go of expecting someone to fulfill your emotional needs, you give them the freedom to love you authentically, not performatively. And isn't that the kind of love we all want? Your life, your responsibility. This is the hard truth. No one is coming to save you. No one is coming to consistently fulfill your needs in the exact way you want. No one is responsible for your healing, your happiness, or your peace. But this isn't bad news. It's the best news. Because once you take full responsibility for your emotional life, you stop waiting, you stop blaming, you stop depending, you start building, you start growing, you start healing. You become the source,
And when you become the source, you no longer fear loss. That's freedom. The open hand. Imagine holding sand in your hand. If you close your fist tightly, trying to hold on to it, the sand slips through your fingers. The tighter you squeeze, the more you lose. But if you hold your hand open, relaxed, free, the sand simply rests there. This is how expectations work. When you cling, you lose. When you loosen, you gain presence, clarity, and peace.
Live your life like that open hand. Hold space. Offer grace. And never expect anyone to complete you, because you were never incomplete to begin with. You are enough, as you are. And finally, let this sink in. You are enough, without their approval, without their attention, without their response. You are not made whole by who shows up. You are not made worthy by who chooses you. You are not defined by who meets your expectations. You are whole. You are full. You are free. Let go of expecting anything from anyone. And finally, come home to yourself. Legacy and long-term impact. You've come a long way in this journey. From understanding the emotional trap of expectations to learning how to detach with peace, this final step is about going beyond just you. This is about what happens over time when this mindset becomes a way of life, not just a momentary shift. It's about your legacy. Because whether you realize it or not, every choice you make, every thought you hold on to, every emotional reaction you repeat, it all shapes the life you live and the story you leave behind. Let's explore what your world and your impact looks like when you finally live without expecting anything from anyone. Your relationships become healthier and lighter. Let's start with something obvious yet life-changing. When you stop expecting things from people, your relationships transform. You don't carry silent grudges. You don't test people to see if they care enough. You don't constantly feel let down or emotionally exhausted. Instead, you appreciate what others give freely. You love people for who they are, not for who you wish they'd be. You start attracting people who are drawn to your freedom, not your demands. This doesn't mean you'll have perfect relationships, no one does, but it means they'll be more authentic, mutual, and peaceful. The kind of relationships that breathe rather than suffocate. You build an identity based on wholeness, not wounds. Many people live with a default identity shaped by disappointment. People always let me down. I can't trust anyone. No one ever shows up for me. And while those feelings may have been real in the past, when you live in expectation, you recreate that pain again and again, even when people have good intentions. But when you let go, you stop being a victim of your emotional history. You stop needing someone else to heal the wound. You start defining yourself by your ability to stay centered, your strength to love without clinging, your calm acceptance of reality as it is. That becomes your identity, someone who is whole on their own. And that's a legacy people remember, not because you were cold, but because you were complete. You inspire others without preaching to them. There's a powerful ripple effect that comes with emotional independence. When you stop reacting, stop blaming, start taking responsibility for your peace, people notice. They'll see the way you don't get flustered when someone cancels on you, remain calm in emotional storms, show love without guilt, pressure, or control. And they'll start to wonder, how does this person stay so grounded? You won't even have to say anything. You'll become the kind of person whose presence teaches more than their words ever could. You'll be a living example of what it looks like to let go and still live with love. That's a quiet, unshakable power. Your mental and emotional health flourish. Let's not forget the deep internal benefits. When you expect things from others, you're on an emotional roller coaster. One moment you're excited, the next you're let down. Then comes resentment, withdrawal, overthinking, or anxiety. It's exhausting. But when you break free, you find emotional stillness. You stop giving people power over your mood. You begin to master your reactions. You experience fewer emotional highs and crashes and more lasting inner peace. Over time, this creates better focus, stronger boundaries, more emotional resilience, less anxiety and attachment, and that becomes your personal environment, peaceful, stable, and focused. That's a gift, not only to yourself, but to everyone you interact with. You model unconditional love. What is unconditional love? It's not staying no matter what. It's not sacrificing your needs to keep someone happy. It's loving someone without needing them to be anything other than who they are, and still honoring your own boundaries. It says, I love you. I don't expect you to heal me, fix me, or show up in a certain way, but I also love myself enough to step back if our energies no longer align. This is rare. Most love is conditional, based on what the other person gives, how often they show up, what role they fulfill. But a life lived without expectation allows for pure love. Not perfect, but free from control, guilt, and manipulation. That love becomes part of your legacy. Your legacy becomes one of peace, not pain. Think of the people who changed your life, not through force, but through presence. They weren't the ones who expected you to be different. They weren't the ones who kept score. They were the ones who made you feel free in their presence. That's the legacy you leave. When you live this way, you become known for your calm, not your chaos. People feel safe around you, not judged or pressured. Your life becomes a soft place to land, not a battlefield. You'll be remembered not for what you demanded, but for what you allowed. You finally own your life. When you expect nothing from anyone, everything you receive becomes a bonus, not a requirement. You begin to see every kind word as a gift, every gesture as a blessing, every relationship as a choice, not a lifeline. And more importantly, you stop waiting for someone to apologize, waiting for someone to show up for your worth. You take full ownership of your time, your energy, your happiness. You become free. Not free from others, but free within yourself. And that kind of freedom becomes the ultimate legacy. Be the peace you wish others gave you. In a world full of expectations, be the exception. Be the one who gives freely, receives gratefully, and walks away peacefully. Because when you live without expecting anything from anyone, you finally get everything that matters. Your peace, your power, your purpose. And that is the life worth living, and the legacy worth leaving.